All right, so today we're going to look at applying a material to this cube and establishing a few different channels through textures that we've already created. So currently this cube has a Lambert 1. This is the standard material that comes on all primitives, all objects inside of Maya. This needs to be changed out. I'm going to delete my history real fast to get rid of a few of these nodes. First thing we have to do is right click on this. Now there's a few ways we can apply material. We can either right click and hold over a selected object and come down to assign new material or assign favorite material, which in this case we're going to be using a Blinn. If we had already made the material, we could come down and assign that. Or we can come up here into our hyper shaders. A few ways to get to that. We can either come here and find our hyper shading window, like so. We can also find that through Windows, Rendering Editors, Hypershade. All right, I'm just going to use this for now. I'm going to come to Create, Material, Blinn. Now the difference between a Blinn and a Lambert is a Blinn has a specular channel. A Lambert is a matte material by its nature. So you won't be able to add in your specular color texture. So I'm going to name this matte underscore crate 01, just in case I have multiple crate materials. So these two color channels are what we're going to be dealing with. This is going to be our standard diffuse map or our color map, and this one here is going to be our specular color spec map, and then down here the bump/normal mapping is where we're going to put our normal map that we've already created. We do so by clicking on this button here. It's going to pull up our create render node. Because these are files that we've already created, JPEG images, I'm going to hit File. It's going to open up File 1. I'm going to click on this folder. It's going to open up this window right here. I'm going to come out currently to my desktop. If you've created a project, it should be in your source images folder. I'm going to find my texture. I named it color, create texture color, JPEG. It's important to name these things intuitively so that it's easy to find. I'm going to hit open, and you can see that now it's applied across through here. I'm going to come down, so I click on the matte crate right here. This is the Blinn node. I'm going to come down to my specular channel, click on this, File, click the folder for File 2. I'm going to open that up. Notice I've named it Create Texture Spec. Now this is a black and white map, as we talked about earlier. The lighter areas show more light, the darker areas show less light. Black is no light at all, white is presence of light. Notice this changed our specularity up here in our preview considerably. Now I'm going to come into this Blinn again, come to my bump and normal mapping, click here, File, and this doesn't immediately give me the ability to select my file, because bump map goes directly into your bump node, bump 2D node. So inside your hyper shader, just come over here where it says File 3, click that, and notice now I have my folder. Pull that up. I'll select my normal right here. Open. You can see that that's applied itself. Now I just need to select my object, like so. And I have a few different ways to go about this. I can just right click and hold on this and assign my existing material. That's a pretty easy way to do it. Or if I'm already in my hypershader and I have my object selected, I can right click and hold over top of my material. You'll notice I have my material here. I have to select the material and then right click, and I would have to go to assign material, select. Here we go. So I can do it that way. Now you notice up here, because I've assigned that material, I have this object selected. It now says mat crate 1 in my attribute editor, along with this p cube, which I'll rename as crate 01. There we go. So at this point, I can move this down here off my screen. Now, many of you probably are having this issue where you see that you created it, you see all of your textures plugged into the proper channels, but what you don't have is visibility in your viewport. That's because you haven't turned it on. So you have to come up here to this little ball, the textured ball inside your viewport, and click that. All right. Now on this particular ball, this kind of looks like garbage. That's just because the UVs haven't been laid out yet. Or I'm sorry, this cube. So for this guy, I'm going to quickly lay out the UVs so we can see what's going on. I'm going to click and open my UV editor. Now we can see, let me turn this off real fast. Right there is the ability to turn off and on your applied texture inside of your UV editor. So here we have all of the faces for the original or default UV layout for a cube. Grab this, attach that there, that drives me nuts. All right, so I'm just going to grab these faces like so, and I'm going to cut all of those and come into UV shell. Now you'll notice each of these are their own shell. You can tell because the white edge goes all the way around, and because I can hover over these individual faces like so. Now I'm just going to grab each of these and translate W and snap these to the grid, the center grid. And my snap is stuck. There we go. There we go. I'm going to highlight all those. I'm just going to scale them up. Like so. Alright. If I really want to make sure that they're snapped perfectly to the grid, then I can come into my UV mode, highlight my UV, and I can translate holding X and snap that to the grid. This will help me get just a little bit more my snap is acting funny right now. There we go. All right, so now I can exit out of this, and now you'll see, right click, object mode, that our crate looks the way we would expect it to. Now right now, it has a little bit of a fuzzy look. That's because of the normals, and the normals right now are cranked up pretty high. We can see how these would actually affect us if we do a quick render. Grab my spotlight or a point light. Maybe I'll just do a point light. Pull that out. Pull this up a little bit. Maybe I just snap it to this corner vertex and pull it towards me and up a wee bit. Right. And I'm going to give this a quick test render inside of my Maya software. Now, normally I would use Arnold, but Arnold doesn't react so hot with Maya shaders. So we can see that the bump map is a little too heavy, so we have to adjust our 2D bump node. All right, so let me pull in here and up a little bit, get a better render of that. All right, so I'm going to pull this up. I'm going to click, right click, and graph network. I'm graphing the crate network. Now you remember when we created our bump node, right here it gave us a 2D, our bump 2D node, and we have a bump depth. You want to make sure you adjust this a bit. By default it's always set at 1, which usually is a bit too high. I'm bringing this down to like 0.15. We'll see what that looks like. Do another render. That's looking a little bit better. Zoom way in on this guy. Yeah, that's looking a lot better. Looks more believable. And that's what we're going for. This light is a little obnoxious, but what are you going to do? Let me add a little color to that. Something in this range. And bring this down, maybe like 0.15, 0.14, somewhere in there. All right. And the render, there we go. And you'll see what I mean here if I come over to the Arnold. Our light is going to be far too dim for Arnold. Put this on quadratic. Take this and crank it up to about 250. Just do an IPR on it. There we go. So while Arnold does a far better job at maintaining our colors, it doesn't recognize the bump map inside of standard Blinn. We would have to make an Arnold standard shader, but we'll do that in a separate video. All right, hopefully that helped figure out how to render or figure out how to attach the shaders, materials, and the textures inside of the material.